Hello, Niall. Nice to see you again after our visual or virtual meeting we had some weeks back. I'm really happy that we have the chance this afternoon to have a little chat and get more background information on the National Park Rescue. So,
likewise, Christian, lovely to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell me what your position, your role with the NPR. What is it all about?
Yeah, so I'm the conservation director. What that means is, I suppose, I provide the scientific yay or nay. If someone suggests something, I tell them whether or not it's possible, legal, scientifically valid, or whatever else. So really, my role involves actually running a lot of the fundamentals of the organization. Myself and Mark Hiley, particularly the two of us, take on most of the structure of the organization. But the differentiation is that Mark is fantastic in the field. He's a brilliant field man. He's very good at mechanics, very good at his electrics, all of that. Yeah. Whereas I'm more of an academic and have a good understanding of conservation and biology. So there's a natural division of labor between us.
Yeah, it's always good to bring the right people together so that everybody can play his role and bring in his share. Let me understand a bit. What is your mission when you talk about Africa's frontline emergency service? That sounds very dramatic, but I think this is what the situation is about. Huh?
Yeah, you're right. It does sound dramatic because the situation is dramatic. If we think about African elephants alone, there are a third of the elephants left in Africa now than there were when I was born 40 years ago. African lion populations are down by about 40% in the last 20 or 30 years. And various other species are suffering similar losses. So the situation really is grave. And what we've got is a really relatively small number of national parks that are left. The rest of the landscape is taken up by farming and other forms of development. And those parks are now under extreme pressure from poachers and other types of outside threats. Okay. And what National Park Rescue aims to do is identify those national parks in Africa that are at most risk from poaching. And for want of a better word, to try and rescue them. So to team up with our in-country partners, with the national wildlife authorities in the countries where we work, and try and resuscitate those national parks to make sure that they can provide the services that the wildlife and the people around those parks need.
Okay. So for how long is the National Park Rescue existing?
We officially set ourselves up as a charity in 2016, so five and a half years ago. Right. But actually, we've been operating for 3 years before that. Okay. So Mark Hiley had been working out in Malawi on a project in the One-Day National Park to try and resuscitate that. I've been working in Honduras in Latin America on a project, a place called Casuca National Park, to resuscitate that. And we were brought together by a mutual friend who suggested that we team up, pool our resources, pool our intelligence and our energies. And what we came up with was National Park Rescue.
Okay, there's somebody else to be rescued.
my daughter has just come in and asked to be rescued as well.
Hello, sweetie.
Phoebe, this is Christian.
Hello. Oh, say again her name?
Her name is Phoebe.
Phoebe, hello, nice to meet you.
Phoebe is Christian. She can't actually hear you because you're in here.
Okay.
But she can see you. Phoebe, you go down and find Mummy.
Excellent.
You go downstairs and find Mummy. I'm talking to Christian. Yeah.
All right.
Good girl.
But as I understand and got to know, it's not only to protect the animals. What are you doing and what you're active about? So there's so much more.
Yeah. So when I say resuscitate the parks, what I want them to do is to be able to provide the services that they should be able to provide to the people as well as to wildlife. Yeah. A national park should generate an enormous amount of economic value for the communities that live around it, let alone intrinsic value. And of course, it should act as a refuge, a safe haven for wildlife. Yeah. And at the moment, many of the parks in Africa and other parts of the world are doing neither. So the communities that live near those parks aren't benefiting from them, and the wildlife that lives in there aren't actually protected by them. And what we're trying to do with National Park Rescue is to unite those two things, to enable communities to receive a significant benefit from living next to a national park, and for the wildlife there to be safe from persecution.
Yeah, because as I understand or try to explain myself, that it's probably not that people don't like animals living there, but I mean, they're in a completely different living situation than we are. So for them, it's a source of money, of trying to survive, making yeah, their family live on. So that's also, you have to show them certain alternatives and give them the support.
Precisely. Something I've come to realize is that if people are genuinely worried about where their next meal is coming from, or whether they're going to survive through to the next year, then they can't reasonably be expected to concern themselves about conservation, about why not to poach an elephant or why not to engage in deforestation. What we have to try and do is to link the economic prosperity of local people with the preservation of natural heritage of wild places. And that's easier said than done in some situations, but where we are, we do that principally through employment opportunities and commerce. So that's the direct immediate benefit that they receive. Then the ancillary benefits that go with that, people feeding down into their families because of the money that they're earning. We provide better access to education and healthcare through one of our reward schemes that we call Sables. And then what we're trying to emphasize as well is that the value that intact ecosystems have on the local communities in terms of keeping their climate stable, reducing the risk of flooding, reducing the risk of erosion, making sure they still have healthy pollinator populations. Most of these people have crops that rely on pollination. If they lose their forest, they lose all their pollinators. Trying to make them aware that we need intact landscapes for their own lives to function is vital. But really, what they need most of all is food security and the ability to have a job and the ability to make a living. And we try and provide them with that.
Yeah, I think it's something which is so far away from our normal world here in Europe in general, that it's, I think, difficult to understand, really, to see and feel what it means for a family, for probably the man or the woman in the family in charge, to be in their position of not knowing where the next food is coming from. So therefore, I think you are under extreme pressure, and then giving them the alternatives. It's great to hear that you are thinking much wider, and that's a much more complex situation. So let's talk about maybe the more simple things. How does a normal day look in the reservation? How does that start?
Yeah, so a day in Chisarira National Park starts with a muster. So the team, we've got 30 staff, they all gather and they report to each other and to the senior management how the day went the day before and what they're planning to do on the present day. And then everyone gets about their business. So that muster happens at dawn, and then everyone will go off for the whole day. We've got, as I said, 30 staff. 10 of those are exclusively working on law enforcement duties. So they are local community people that do anti-poaching patrols, and they will go out for either day patrols or multi-day. They'll go out for 5 or 6 days at a time, and then they'll come back. We've then got teams that work on all of the infrastructure that you need to make a park work. If your road system inside the national park collapses, you can't deploy your rangers. If your water system collapses, no one can drink. If your power collapses, you've got no communication. So there's so many things that need to be constantly maintained and tinkered with and updated. So our infrastructure team are very, very busy as well. So after the muster, people will go off into the field, and they might be camping for a few nights, watching out for elephants and listening to lions at night, looking for poachers, whatever it ends up being. And then they come back again and report back on how their day has gone.
Oh, well, with Corona hitting us over the last years, we can nearly say, or definitely many months, I would have hoped that has a positive influence on poachers coming to Africa, or are they just ignoring Corona and using that time to fly under the radar?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and every country and every location has had a different experience. But the general experience is that coronavirus has been terrible for African conservation. One of the problems is that a huge amount of conservation in Africa in particular is funded on the basis of tourism. The tourists' dollars pay for the protection of national parks. And for me, that strikes me as a terrible false economy, given that we know we need these areas intact for our own livelihoods, for the regulation of our climate, pollination, flood mitigation, everything else that I described, trees creating the oxygen that we breathe, the waterfalls giving us the water that we drink, everything. We need intact landscapes. The fact that we are protecting that just on the whims of Western tourists seems insane. But that is the case in most places. So places which rely upon tourism have really struggled to keep their staff employed, struggle to keep the areas protected. And poaching poaching is also linked to poverty in many cases, and when rural communities have not been able to work as well through COVID, they've returned to poaching in a way that they might not have done before.
Okay.
We've had a slightly different experience where we are, partially because we're remote, so we don't rely on tourism so much.
Yeah.
Our model means that we're paying for the park to function without tourism. We don't need tourism there. We're keeping it running anyway. And then the third element is that we believe that the communities that we work with are well integrated to the conservation of the park.
Yeah.
And so they realize that if they were to return to poaching, they would be damaging their own long-term prospects.
Okay.
And so we haven't seen the increase in poaching that many other areas are. And I'm sure the reasons are complex, but for me, it's probably principally because we don't rely on tourism and we do have good integration of the local communities.
Okay. Yeah, but that brings us to the point that at the end, how would we say? How would I say? Money is an important aspect to all of any activity. So also yours is highly dependent on finance, and so it's how has that worked for the last years? Is purely on donation, or is there luckily some smart European system behind that helps you at least?
Not yet, no. So it's all on donations for the time being. I would love in the not too distant future to start to incorporate biodiversity credits and carbon credits, these other novel financial mechanisms. And coming out next year, we'll start to see actual natural assets classed as a tradable commodity. So that might be an area of forest, it might be elephants, and that people can actually buy and sell indexed commodities linked to that wildlife. That's likely to start happening next year. It's brand new, and I'm involved in some of this in the background as well.
Okay.
But for the time being, before these novel financial products are available, we're really relying upon the generosity of certain wealthy donors and now the public. Since when was it? Since about January this year, we've started to do quite a lot of public-facing interaction through our social media, and we've had a wonderful response. The public realizes that what we're doing is something that's very important, and we are receiving a huge number of donations every day from the general public, which is fabulous, because before that we were funded by originally a group of film stars, people like Sir Roger Moore and Michael Palin, Rupert Everett, and then a group of wealthy friends who had come together to support me and Mark and the rest of us in our work, and they have been funding us up until now. We can't rely upon that, because with coronavirus, lots of people didn't know where their money was coming from, so they had to tighten their purse strings a little bit. Someone might get another interest. You can't rely in the long term on the generosity of just a small number of individuals. So what we have done is look wider, and we've been delighted with the public response. It's been very heartening.
Yeah, I think it's such a challenge to tell the story these days, because there's so much information just getting on top of our heads and running into your email account. So everybody's trying to get your attention. But then again, when I look at so many people having their own cats, their own dogs, I mean, they give their last shirt for the health of their own animal. But we are not aware that there's so many important animals for our planet that we all treasure so much, even if we haven't seen them. Everybody, I think, gets wet eyes when he talks about elephants and the adventure of lions and the wildlife in Africa. So I'm glad to hear that you managed to reach out to these people, and this is at the end what we also try to do together. And I think it was great that Barbara Sturm linked us together and made this project start. So I don't know, what was your first emotion or first reaction when you heard about this?
Well, firstly, delighted. As you can imagine, any corporate partnership I think is important, but particularly one which combines the beautiful artwork, the beautiful ceramic work, with the cause. And I really like that. We've seen in the past photographers using their skills in order to try and raise money for conservation. But I think it's something very different going into the porcelain work. An area, it's a luxury good, but for people to help finance conservation through the purchase of a luxury, high quality product, I think is amazing. So we were delighted, surprised, and have been thrilled with the response.
Okay.
We really have.
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, because we ourselves always self-critical to which extent people understand this, and they say, yeah, but then I have to buy something, and part of this is supporting this. But very important for us is also that we manage to make people aware of the whole situation, and therefore I was really glad that Barbara came up with this idea of saying, well, we take these 4 really critical animals, and I said, well, I can understand the elephant. Everybody knows they are under a lot of pressure, and sea turtles. We all know these images of clogged throats with plastics, and bees. Yes, I mean, we have our own bee stocks here in the garden to help with that a little bit. But on the rabbit side, I was a little bit surprised, but then she easily explains that, well, this is one of the animals in her industry, the beauty and medical industry, which is so severely and intensively tested that we say, yeah, then we definitely have to put it on our cup as well. So that
yeah, for sure. And I think that's really important. When you see industries that traditionally aren't engaged in conservation on the environment, something like the beauty products industry, which does often have a reputation for being a little bit more damaging environmentally speaking. Seeing organizations like Dr. Sturm's taking the front foot and being a trailblazer, I think is really important. And what I hope is that will inspire other people within those industries to follow their footprints as well. I think it's vital that you have these leaders in business that are setting the standard that everyone else needs to try and live up to.
No, I think it's absolutely necessary to get people widen their perspectives and get a better understanding that our planet is so huge and some things seem to be so far away. But from my perspective, I think everything is so closely linked to each other that only because Africa is a few thousand kilometers away, it still influences my life intensively. Maybe not within the next 24 hours, but in the mid to long run.
Well, I don't know whether in Germany you ever get this, but here in the UK, sometimes I'll go outside and there will be a thin layer of dust on the car from the Sahara, so that's been picked up, and then the weather systems have taken it, and then when it's rained, it's brought with it Saharan dust. So I physically can feel Africa here.
Connected.
Totally connected. And then if we think about the forests in Central Africa as well, the amount of oxygen that is produced by that forest in Central Africa is vast. And again, we all need that to breathe. If we look at the carbon sequestration of these forests as well, we look at what's happening in terms of amount of carbon in the atmosphere and the importance that forests have on carbon sequestration. Forests with elephants in them sequester 7% more carbon than forests without elephants, which gives you a fascinating view into the importance of elephants within that Central African forest ecosystem for the sequestration of carbon, which is regulating our climate. So all of these things, they might seem so far away, yet the life of that one elephant living in a forest in Gabon or Cameroon or wherever it is influencing us here in Western Europe.
Yeah, okay, but can you explain that? Really is interesting me, because we had a lot of discussion with a Greenpeace activist last week here, whom we invited to share his perspectives, his inside information with some of our partners and customers, because I think we all need to put our head around how we as industry partners can actually make this world better, and how we can reduce CO2 emissions. But why does the elephant help that?
Yeah, precisely. So the two things are important: is emissions and sequestration. So the carbon that's in the air, we need to suck back down. Sure. What elephants do in the forests is they clear a lot of the smaller trees and the smaller bushes. Through their browsing and the way they move, they create these clearances, which allows the bigger trees to grow yet further. And it's those bigger trees that sequester so much more carbon. So the studies that have been done that have measured the amount of carbon in the soil in forests where elephants are allowed to go about their business, there's 7% more carbon there than there are in forests without elephants. There's a equally fascinating thing with whales, great whales. So the great whales living out in the ocean, and they dive down deep into the depths, and they bring up all these nutrients to the surface. And then when they poop, when they go to the toilet, all of the plankton that feed upon the whale poo, those plankton then grow on that whale poo. Plankton do 50% of the photosynthesis that happens in the planet. So they're sequestering an enormous amount of carbon there. And it's been valued that great whales sequester more than $2 million worth of carbon across their lifetime, an individual whale.
Wow.
The forest elephants, it's about $1.75 million. So not quite as much, but still a significant sum. And if you can put that value on an individual whale or an individual elephant, and then tie that to insurance. So if you're looking at ships that might be hitting whales because they're going too fast through protected areas, and if a big insurer will not insure a ship if it's going too fast because of the value of that whale, or if you can pay a community $85 a day to protect an elephant because that's how much carbon it's sequestering, suddenly you're changing the game when it comes to the protection of wildlife.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it's unfortunately our world is so run by figures, and this is something which a lot of people only understand, and when it goes into their own pocket or wallet, and when that is closely linked to each other, I think then people will easily understand and start to rethink about what is really necessary for their daily life. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a complex situation, but I'm glad that people like you and the team are really taking care of our future, and that we hopefully manage to widen the perspective, get the audience attracted out there a little bit with our outreach, and that it's brought together in something beautiful that people enjoy every day. But I hope that it really brings the discussion to the dinner table or to the lunch table. I mean, this is why we are so focused on dinnerware, because this is where people actually start to discuss and start to talk about what is actually happening in their daily life throughout their day, etc. Because you sit in front of the TV, you're going to the movies, but sitting around together with your family and learning about each other, I think is so essential. So that's why table culture is for us important, and I'm really happy that we have something that moves on even further with a little additional story on that side.
It's how it began for me as well. Sat around the dinner table talking with my parents, who are both biologists, who are both hugely engaged in environmental protection. And it got those stories got me thinking that maybe there's more that I can do as well. And it was those table conversations that got me started.
Yeah, and I'm very glad. I don't know when was the last time you've been updated. So by now we brought this to maybe something like 1,500 tables already.
That's extraordinary. Yeah, that's fantastic. Very impressive.
Yeah, so I think it's due to the whole story, to the partnership, to the design, the quality of FÜRSTENBERG. I think it all comes together in one nice story, and hopefully this will move on in the right direction. So generating also a certain financial contribution, which is probably just a little drop in the big ocean of that you have to care about, but.
It all matters, and it all makes a difference, and every single bit is very gratefully received.
No, but I think what I see is that we try to multiply this by telling the story and giving people the understanding, and so and the story continues. I mean, you received our Christmas card, so you saw there's
and it's
a lot
beautiful
of animals, and maybe a few more animals, and I can just say watch out for what is happening in. In early January, we are going to the next fair, where and maybe the animal family will grow a little bit.
I hope so. Fantastic, exciting. Yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, that's it's still a little preview, but I think you can imagine which direction this might move to, and so if for the moment the donation is received directly as a share from the FÜRSTENBERG side. So the next part will be from the Seeger design side, from Seeger side. That we also.
Thank you, Mr. Seeger.
Yes, it's the whole family, the whole team that decided that this will be a great story to continue. And for the last years we have been on more, social responsibility projects, or more involved in this side, because we say, well, as a brand, there's more to only making beautiful products, but also saying how can we contribute a little bit to the society with and the cultural, and especially when it comes to protective projects, what can we share on that side?
Yeah, it's great. I think a lot of people feel as though it's too much for them to take on themselves, but everyone can make a difference in our own way, in our professional lives, in our personal lives, just by the conversations that we're having with people, encouraging everyone else to have a difference themselves. That's how it starts. It starts with conversations and then our own actions and so on. So we're delighted that you are being a trailblazer and paving the way.
Thank you. No, it's really something which is got very close to our heart, and I must admit that the first moments when I looked at the website, I said, "Whoa, what kind of a military organization is this?" But I think that was to make it look serious and also give your team the right impact, standing up against the poachers who are well equipped and well financed.
Yeah, and we can't forget that every day that our rangers go into the field, they are facing a genuine risk of their lives. That elephants are still being poached by heavily armed people, financed by very, very wealthy folk, and most of those tusks will end up in Southeast Asia. A lot of the middlemen paying for it in Africa or Southeast Asian of origin as well, or East Asian of origin, and these are tough, bush-hardened people that they're in there to kill. And our teams are there to try and stop it. So as much as we are very much about trying to engage with the communities as much as we can, because that's what's most important, we cannot forget the real danger that the rangers are facing every single day. And yeah, it's quite extraordinary when to be present when an arrest happens is an emotional, very exhilarating, and incredibly fulfilling time. Really quite
I can just imagine. Luckily, I've never been in such a situation or similarity. I think the last time I got in a fight, that must have been somewhere in school. Luckily, but it's these threatening situations. I mean, luckily in Germany, you're not allowed to carry arms like in the US, where maybe people are a little bit more used to that. But no, I think at the end of the day, that definitely is something that we are not, that is just not happening in our world. But you cannot start arguing this or saying, let's solve this on a diplomatic level. I think at the end of the day, you have to threaten your opponent in a serious way.
Yeah, and it's a shame that unfortunately sometimes you do have to fight fire with fire. But these guys are serious. The people that are going after elephants and rhinos and lions, they're not messing around. They aren't the types of people that are just trying to feed their family. These are serious organized criminals. The illegal wildlife trade is rated at about $24 billion per year. So serious money that's involved in the trade of these products, and these guys are they don't mess around. you have to respond in kind.
I can imagine, because I mean at the end of the day, it's like a drug dealer. He's also not willing to discuss if he should continue with his business or not.
Often it's the same people as well. There's what we call crime convergence. So people that are involved in one type of crime are often involved in another type of crime. So the same gangs that are smuggling drugs and guns across borders are also smuggling ivory and rhino horn.
All right. Oh, wow. Well, I think that's still something that we probably all need to think about and keep in mind and continue now and in the future, because it's not going away. Maybe some people will wake up that it's there are other medical treatments instead of rhino noses or horns that at the end don't make a difference to consume or not. But well, that's these fantasies a lot of Asian guys still have, I guess.
Yeah, the medicine's a big thing. The biggest thing is just status. The fact that people have got a lot of disposable income and they want to show that off by having a rhino horn or having an elephant tusk. It's amazing. Some of it is medicine, absolutely, but a lot of it is just status. And there's so many better ways you can demonstrate your wealth than by having to kill an animal. So many better ways, and I think it's going to take a generation to shift. It's not that long ago that people in Europe were also demonstrating their wealth in ways that were really quite unsustainable, and many people still do. I think we're just a generation behind in China when it comes to using natural resources as a demonstration of wealth. Tusks and ivory.
Get your own rescue park.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have one, name it, put your name on it, and
what an amazing way to demonstrate
say, well,
your wealth.
I got my own, and not to shoot animals for free, but to protect this for yourself and your children. That would be, I think, a beautiful.
That's a legacy.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's some status.
yeah, that would be nice. Well, Niall, thank you very much for that fruitful conversation, and especially for yours and the team's passion that you are putting in.
Thank you, Christian. Yeah, it really is a passion, as you say. My parents were biologists. My daughter, I expect, will be a biologist.
Yeah.
And Mark is the most passionate man I have ever come across when it comes to wildlife. He was a very successful media producer in London, and he left all that behind to move out to Africa to live in a Land Rover and to protect wildlife. It's extraordinary. We have a very dedicated team. We're incredibly lucky to have a team of very professional, very, very dedicated, passionate individuals behind us. And yeah, together we're doing what we can. And thank you to you and to Dr. Sturm and everyone at Stiga FÜRSTENBERG for your help as well. We're very grateful to you.
Yeah, but no, but it's a great pleasure, and I'm happy that we continue the story in the next year with a wider spread of our collection. I think I can say that, and making sure that we have a few more animals to get the focus of our consumers, the media, etc. too. And I truly hope that sooner than later we have the chance to see, well, at least for me, to see the reality straight ahead. That would be great.
Yeah, well, you're welcome anytime. I will be going back in January. Mark is there. He arrived in Zimbabwe couple of days ago. He'll be in the park probably tomorrow or the day after. I'll be going in January and then again a couple of times next year. So we look forward to welcoming you.
Yeah, excellent.